Howdy, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the NES GameMaker. Today, we'll be working on the transition object, and depending on how much time, music managers, and stats. So let's get cracking. Let's go back over to our game objects, and object underscore transitions. You'll remember this from our previous tutorials. Shouldn't be that hard. We'll give this guy a little sprite. Makes it easy to see when we put it into a room. Make sure you remember to set it to persistent. Just checking our other game objects to make sure they're persistent as well. Alright, so now that we got this open, we can throw in a create event. And we are going to want to put in a couple of enums. And those are fairly easy. There you go. So that would be our trans mode off. Next, go to restart, room reset, intro, and quit. And transition type none, slide, or fade. As far as goes in this tutorial, we are just going to use none and fade. We won't really be using the slide because Mega Man doesn't use a slide. And we're going to need a few starting variables. Our GUI width, or GUI height, because we are going to be displaying the transitions using the GUI layer. GUI half width, GUI half height. Mode type, transition type, starting percent. Starting this higher than 1 will create a slight delay in the length of the event, so it'll stay at 1 slightly longer than normal by starting at 1. This is mostly I was doing that in the Chip and Dale tutorial because I needed to have the black last slightly longer so that it would cover up the transition from one room to another. But you can just start it at 1 if you feel like it. I'll just leave it at 1.2 since I was working. Our percent, set that equal to starting percent, and our target equal to room. Those are just some default values. Gonna throw in a step and a draw GUI event. Draw GUI end, actually. There you are. And in our step event, so if we are in off position, then exit because we don't want to be doing anything. But if we are not in the off mode, then we want to be transitioning our percent variable from 1.2 to 0 or 0 to 1.2. So we'll just copy and paste that in there. If percent is equal to, well, we want to set percent equal to the maximum of either 0 or percent minus the max of percent times 0.1 and 0.5. This is a formula that Sean Spalding came up with. I just continue to use it because it's there. Else if percent is equal to the min of the starting percent, so on and so forth. Just gives you a smooth transition using these numbers. Then we have to set up our switch. Alright, so when we've reached 0 or we are at 100, or 1.2 in this case, switch mode underscore, and throw in a bunch of cases. We'll just copy and paste that again. So we want to get through this quickly. We have our intro mode. If we're in intro mode, then turn me off and turn me back to standard. So intro mode is when you're coming into the room and you're going from full black to fully visible. Then you turn off the transition since the transition is finished, and put this here so that it returns controls back to normal when the transition is fully over. Transition mode next. We'll go to room next once you reach full black. Or go to is the same thing, except you can actually specify the room. Restart just restarts the room. And room reset. Oh wait, restart is game restart. Room restart is room restart. And quit is game end. So those are all fairly simple and easy. Yes, I was. I did all that in the draw GUI end. Oops. Take you to. Just go exit. Go move that over to the step event, leaving the draw GUI end open and available. And again, transit mode is off. Then exit. Didn't update the code in here to my new style. So transition mode type slide. We set the draw color to black, draw a rectangle, and slide it down across the screen. Then set draw color back to white. If it's fade, then we draw a rectangle and we fiddle with the alpha percent and do a alpha percent fade. Alright, that should be fairly simple, straightforward. So next up on our docket, we wanted to set up some object stat stuff. We're just going to kind of create this real quick. We're not actually going to flesh it out yet because we don't, again, we need to have a character that will use the stats before we actually bother with it. Give you a little icon again, not my best work. Give you a create event, and we'll throw in some variables. Give ourselves an HP, a maximum HP, a lives, E-tanks, which are energy tanks, which are used in the game for a full health restoration, and ammos, which we will use once we actually get around to setting up the player character. And yeah, we'll just ignore this for the rest of the time here because we don't really need any more than that in there until the character is going around. Let's jump ahead to the music manager. Actually, quickly before we go over to the music manager, come over to your scripts folder, utilities, no, not utilities, object scripts, just making sure that you're familiar with this. We have a fade transition script here with object transitions. Mode underscore is equal to argument 0. Type is fade. And if argument count is greater than 1, target is equal to this. All right. That'll be our transition script that we're going to be using. So coming back to this, we need to create an object music underscore manager. And music manager is just going to be a stage really for the majority of the actual code, which is going to be run through scripts. Now these scripts, this entire object script section, once we get lightweight objects in GMS2, will probably disappear because we won't need these anymore. We'll be able to just incorporate it all. Once we get functions, I guess I should say, we'll just put these all into the music manager as a function rather than as scripts, external scripts. Let's see here. Transition you in, pull up some code. Properties. Now playing and previous track, both of these should be set to no one. Load audio groups. We need to set alarm 0 equal to 1. You have to do it on the next frame or it won't work if you do a game restart. And then set the starting music volume, which can be read from an external INI if you set up a INI file for your game. I don't really go over how to do that at this time, so we'll ignore it for here. I think I'll probably put in a tutorial, an extra tutorial in the future on how to do that kind of things here. But otherwise, we just set our music and its sound effects volume to whatever the global value is. And if you pull open the macro script, you can see that we set it to 0.5 right here. And audio group underscore set gain for these, both of these. I set them to 0 to start with. You could set it to the global music or sound effect volume if you want, but they don't need to be set there. The reason why I set them to 0 is so that you transition, so that you fade in the music whenever you first start, but it doesn't really matter. As far as it goes, the transition, the fade transition is so small you don't really notice it. Let's go over and load those groups. Alarm 0. Load audio groups. Just audio group load, music, audio group load, sound effects. And I named you music, but we're going to change that to muse and effects to SFX. Why did I do that? Because A, it's easier to have them both the same length, and B, it's easier to have them both really short, music and SFX. Alright, so that'll work. Next up, we need to throw in a cleanup event. Audio groups, when they're loaded into RAM so they can be accessed very quickly. So you also need to remember to unload them whenever you aren't going to be using them, which would be mostly just whenever you restart the game. And don't forget persistent. All right. I'm going to throw in the main event here, the end step. All this does is detect if the audio needs to be killed. This is the majority of the code going on in this object here. So kill the audio once it's faded out enough. So if audio is playing, previous track, and audio underscore set gain previous track is less than or equal to 0.001, audio underscore stop sound previous track. Just a reminder, this won't work if you, for some reason, decide you're going to be turning on and off a music faster than the fade out can occur. So don't be trying to transition the music once a second or something like that. Alright, so we have the create, cleanup, end step, alarm 0. All that's left is this. We're going to use another asynchronous event, save load. And this is fairly simple again. We're just going to be using this to transition to game from setup. So once the audio groups are loaded, we want to transition from our init room into the main game. So we wait for a asynchronous load event that tells me that the type audio group load has happened, and if audio group loaded music and audio group is loaded sound effects, then go to my next room. Not Patreon supporters, because we aren't going to be using that for the tutorial. That's just free. We want to go to room copyright. And you need to wait for both of the audio groups to be loaded, because if you don't wait for them both to be loaded, then you won't. Sometimes you'll end up transitioning to the next room before both the audio groups have been loaded, in which case you end up with a lot of blank sound, or just no sound at all, and that's not fun. Alright, so now that I've talked about the setting of the music manager, we need to go look at those scripts. Let's close all here. Object Music Manager scripts. We have 4 different main ones, but there are a couple more that can be created that I should create in the future that would allow you to have even further control over how your audio works. But for the most part, they're just extensions of the already existing audio functions. So we have audio play sound variant. Plays a sound like audio play sound ext, but with random variations in gain and pitch. Pass a number between 0 and 1 for min-max values gain, and 0 and 5 for pitch. And no one for the vars if you don't want to change in pitch or gain. So you're going to have it change the pitch or the gain or both. It wouldn't make sense to use this if you weren't going to be changing one or the other, though. So this is useful if you're going to be doing a bunch of stuff like having a footstep sound effect. You just tell it to play a variant, and then it will create a random sound variant every time you call this. So we just pull in all of our variables that we pass in, assign them to a local variable, play a sound and capture the audio ID of the sound, check to make sure that the minimum values are greater than the maximum, because we don't want to be trying to set a minimum gain of 1 and a maximum of 0, because that'd be weird. Then last but not least, fiddle with the gain/pitch. If Gmin or Pmin equals no one, then change the gain or change the pitch to the random range that is given. And return the sound ID if you need it for something else in the future. Alright, play sound ext is very similar, except instead of doing a variant, we just play a new sound with a custom gain or pitch. Because there was no audio underscore play underscore sound. Let me make sure there. Yeah, it's just, there is no audio play sound ext function as far as it goes. So I made up this ext that allows you to specify the audio gain and pitch when you play your sound, as well as just all the other things. And there's probably other variables you could throw in there as well to make it even more powerful, but for now, I'm just having to change the gain and the pitch of the audio. So yeah, it's pretty much identical to this, except you don't have a range. So cue new song. This is one of the this is the more interesting heavy function. We are given a song, priority, whether or not it loops, and the fade length. So define the fade length. If our fade length variable is equal, so if we have 4 arguments, then set my fade length equal to whatever the 4th argument is. Otherwise, set it to 0. So, and then with our music manager, if the current song is, if the song that I pass the script is equal to no one, then set whatever I'm playing to equal to 0. So kill my current sound if I just pass no one. It's basically the same thing as cue silence, which is right here. But if I did pass it a song that I want to cue next, then set my previous track to whatever is currently playing, set my current track to whatever I want the new song to be, then fade out fade in, set the new song to a gain of 0, and then fade in the new song over the fade length, and fade out the previous track over the fade length. And return now playing, so that we have the sound ID of whatever the new music object the new music ID that we started up playing. Whoops. There we go. So that should be fairly simple and easy, and these are really great. It's fun to use. It makes it really easy and fun to set things up with this as far as music goes. So I said that I wanted to. I'll talk more about different scripts that I think should be implemented with this music manager later on in the future. But for now, we'll leave it at that. Mostly because I can't remember off the top of my head what the other scripts that I want to implement are. So, anyways, that's everything. So let's close all that up. And I think that we are done with our game objects for the most part for now. Let me see what we got here. Yep. The music manager with the last object that we saw here. The music manager sends us to the next room once our music is loaded. So we are going to be setting up our next room, which is the start of the main game, a copyright room, where it just displays the copyright text. It's very simple. But more importantly, we'll be jumping over to the introduction room, where you get the little cutscene, the very famous cutscene as far as it goes, with Mega Man on top of the tall building and all that fun stuff. So I hope you all stick around for that, and good luck with your programming. Real quick here. So let's see. All right, good, perfect. Oh. Pew, pew, pew. Thank you, everybody, who are supporting me on Patreon. And I just destroyed your names to symbolize my thank you. And I just want to remind everybody that Patreon does exist. And if you would like to support this content and future content, please sign up. We have $1 and $5 tiers and $20 tiers if you want to get personalized support for your video games as well. And I think that's everything. So, yeah, once again, so long. Thanks for watching, and good luck with your programming.